Hello and thank you for joining me today. My name is Jan Clothier from Thinking Stamping and I'm an independent Stampin' Up demonstrator based in New Zealand. This video is part of my tutorial series and it uses the Quiet Meadow bundle, which involves the stamp set and the dies, and they both come from the 2021 to 22 annual catalogue. And we'll also be using the Butterflies and Flowers Layering Decorative Masks, which are from the January to June 2022 mini catalogue, and it's a set of six stencils or masks which can be used to make butterflies and flowers, but also contains 3 various patterned masks. Now I've just stored them with a piece of card in between them because a fellow demonstrator of mine, Pauline, suggested that it was a good way to stop all the little pieces snagging into each other, and I thought that was a great idea, so I have shamelessly copied her suggestion and separated mine with pieces of card. And today we'll be using that mask. Okay, so what do you need to make this card? Well, you need a card base. I've used Night of Navy. And I've cut a 10.5 centimetre slice off of a piece of A4, trimmed it slightly so that I can have a card front that's 14.8 by 10.5. So I've got that for the base. I've got a mat of Balmy Blue, which is 10 by 14.3. And an inner piece of basic white, which is 0.5 centimetre, again smaller, so it is 9.5 by 13.8 tall. And I've got exactly the same setup for the inside, a mat of Balmy Blue 10 by 14.3 and a piece of basic white 9.5 by 13.8, which we'll decorate later. Okay, now what I've done with this card front is I have used the decorative mask to lay down some colour on it. So when you get these masks, you will see that one side is shiny and one side is slightly less grey and more of a matte finish. Now I think of that as the bit that goes next to the paper because it's slightly grippier, but it does just help me make sure I always use the same side of the mask to ink up. So the shiny side up, the slightly matte side down. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do an all over pattern. So I want it to be central. So I think I will have it about there. Just making sure I'm using the correct side. Oh, okay. Okay, and then what I'm going to do next, after I've kind of lined up where I want it to be, so I'm just going to use some painter's masking tape, and I'm going to attach my piece of card to the mask. Now I know you can attach the paper and all of that, but I really don't want masking tape on the right side of my paper because I've had just too many experiences where at the last minute it has lifted the surface of my finished card, so I'm preferring to do it that way. Okay, so I'm going to get my blending brush, my blue blending brush, because I have a blending brush for each colour family, and some Balmy Blue, and I'm just going to use circular motions, but gentle. I'm also going to hold the mask as I work so that it stays more firmly in place. Okay, and the other little thing about doing it my way is I can just have a quick peek and just make sure that it has in fact covered. So I'm going to just peel off that. Once I finish this video, I'm just going to wipe that over with a damp cloth so it's ready to use the next time. And now I'm just going to peel off my painter's tape here. Oops. Should have done it from a 45-degree angle because that does seem to help. As you can see, that little tear is on the back, so it's not going to matter. Now, in the manner of all good cooking shows, what I did earlier was I took a piece like that and I ran it through the Tasteful Textiles 3D embossing folder, and you can see it's given it that lovely kind of texture as well as pattern, almost like a piece of damask cloth. So I like that effect. If you don't have the Tasteful Textile folder, you know, you could probably use anything that gives you a nice all over pattern. Okay, so I'm now going to attach my stenciled and embossed card front to my Balmy Blue mat. Which way upward I like it. That looks upwards to me, so I'm going to do it that way. Now I'm good, because I've used glue, you know, I can just make sure that I've got that straight, got a little bit of wiggle room. Okay, I'm just going to run my bone folder over the edge so I've got a nice smooth edging, and then I'm going to attach that to my card front. Now, once you've got to this stage, of course you can do whatever you like with your card, but I've chosen to use the Quiet Meadow set. But I'm thinking if you had the Nature's Harvest set, there's beautiful die cuts in that, or the Artistic Expression. You know, there's lots of other sets that you could use if you don't have Quiet Meadow. So what I've done is I have already done the die cutting. So I have used that die, and out of Night of Navy I've cut that piece of foliage. Just going to poke out the last little remnants, and using this die I've cut 2 pieces in white. I'm just going to pop those aside for now, but what I am going to do to make these stand out a little bit more is I'm just going to sponge the heads of the flowers. So I'm going to use Night of Navy for that. I'm going to get back my trusty blending brush. Now, because this is very, very flimsy, I have to make sure that I hold it. Whoops. I have to make sure that I hold it nice and firmly, because otherwise it's going to tear off, and that is not going to be helpful. So again, just hold it firmly so it doesn't tear. Little circular motions. And there we go, we've just touched him up nicely. I guess another alternative, if you didn't want to do that, would be to colour it with your blends or coloured pencils or whatever. But I kind of just like that monochromatic look that's going on there. Okay, so now I have to lay them out and just see what they're going to look like. So 1, 2, and I think that this one will cut him a bit shorter. Oops. Okay, just to kind of get the general idea about where I'm going to put them. Now, I've also previously cut out the sentiment. I've used the Thinking of You from the set, and I have used the label die which comes with the dies. So I'm still using the Meadow dies set there, and I cut out an identical piece in Night of Navy because I am going to layer these just to give a little bit of edge and definition to the sentiment so it doesn't get lost on that patterned background. So I'm just going to get them to, again, see, here's my glue letting me have some wiggle room to just get them where I want them. Okay, and then I should have just flicked those out before I stuck them together, but you know, it's not too late. It's hardly ever too late. Okay, so where would I put that? Yep, about there. So what I'm going to do is I am just going to mark with a pencil where I'm putting the first thing, just so I know how high to set it. Get my little mat, and I'm just going to dab on some little bits of glue. And just to reduce the chances of it oozing, I'm just going to pat that down with an old piece of sponge. And pop that in. Oops. Pop that in there. Oops. Okay. Now I need I think I'll do my short flower first, and we'll do the same thing. We'll give it some glue. Give it a bit of a pat off to just make sure it doesn't ooze everywhere. And we will put this one just out there a little bit. Oops. And finally our big one, which we will just do the same thing. Glue. I guess the other thing you could have done with these very delicate die cuts, if you wanted to, is you could have adhered some double-sided adhesive sheet onto them, so that effectively would convert them into giant stickers, and that works quite well as well. Okay, so we'll pop that one there. Right, now before, you can see here on my original, before I add on my sentiment, I'm going to add in this silver bow. Now the silver bow comes out of the Simply Elegant Trim Pack, which is from the 2021 to 22 annual catalogue. It comes as a set of two, a gold cord and a silver cord. And here is the bow that I tied earlier. And I'm just going to use a glue dot. Okay, whereabouts do I want this? So I'm going to just pop a glue dot in there just to hold it while I play with it. I'm not worried about the length of the tail because you can always trim the tail later. Yep. And I am going to pop the sentiment up on dimensionals. Okay, flick off the backs. Okay, now let's see, where do we want it? Now, if I've got my card straight on the grid paper, I've maximised my chance of attaching that straight. Yes, it looks straight. And then I'm just going to trim that to the bottom. And the final thing, I'm going to add in some of the rhinestone basic jewels because they are my favourite, well, almost favourite go-to embellishment. So one, I like that they come in different sizes, but I've had to sneak off to another piece to get a middle-sized one. Two, and a little dinky one, which perhaps we'll put there, keeping the rule of three going. And so there we have the outside of this card. And I think you could make it equally successfully with a different stencil pattern. For instance, there's a very nice little floral that you could use as your background instead. And of course, you could pick any colourway to do it. And in fact, I will have to show you another one that I've made, which is a variation on the theme of this. Now I'm just going to do a very simple inside. On my original, what I did was I laid the stencil over my piece of white and just stenciled a pattern in, which is one option that you could do. But what I'm going to do here is I'm going to stamp the spray of flowers from the Quiet Meadow set, which is one of my favourite little stamps. I find it very satisfying to stamp. So we'll just do that in blue. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Ha, such a beautiful stamp. Right, and then we will attach that to the mat. Matting the inside is optional. Most of the time I don't mat the inside of my cards, but in this instance I just thought it was pretty, so I did. And again, that's one of the great joys and pleasures of making your own cards, isn't it? You can do whatever you feel like doing. So we'll do that. Pop them in there. And give the fold a nice crease just to make sure it's going to stand nicely. And there we have it. A lovely little card using the Quiet Meadow bundle and the Butterflies and Flowers layering decorative masks. Now this card is a close relative of this card, and you can see I've used very much the same layout and technique with both the sentiment and the spray. But what I did for this background, instead of an all-over pattern and then texturing it with an embossing folder, I attached the mask exactly as you saw me do for this, but I only sponged in that area just to give it a little bit of texture and colour in the background. So that's a variation you might like to try sometime. And it just goes to show that actually this design does work beautifully in other colours. So if you would like to contact me about anything or know more, then I have a blog and a Facebook page, the details of which are going to pop up on the end card of this video and are in the video description below. If you live in New Zealand and you'd like to shop with me, there are links to my online store in those places as well. And if you've enjoyed what you've seen, don't forget to subscribe to this channel so that you don't miss anything new that comes along. Thank you.